In the valley that held no seasons, where mist curled like old breath, and the sun came late and left early, there was a garden. It had no gate and no wall, only a low hedge of silver thorn that never scratched the hand that reached through. The villagers in the nearest town called it the Garden of Lost Names, because every flower that grew there bloomed with a single name written on its petals, not in ink, not in paint, but in the soft grain of the flower itself. The story went that the garden was planted by a woman named Aara, who had forgotten the face of her first love. Not his name, she remembered that, Kael, but his face, the way his laugh tilted to the left, the small scar over his eyebrow from a childhood fall. She remembered loving him. She could not remember him. And one night, in that hollow ache, she whispered his name into a handful of soil. Morning brought a small white flower, and on its petals curled like a sigh, Kael. So the garden grew. A flower for every name the heart could not let go. Not the dead only, the living too, who had drifted out of reach. A sister who moved across the sea, a friend whose silence became a language you forgot how to speak, a child who never was, a father who left before you learned the shape of his voice. Aara tended the garden for 50 years. When she grew too frail to walk the rows, the flowers tended themselves. And after she died, so the tale says, the garden stayed, because missing does not end when one person stops. Now the rule of the garden was simple. You could enter once. Only once in your life. You could walk the winding paths, breathe the scent of night-blooming jasmine and rain-soaked earth, and you could find the flower that held the name you whispered most often in the dark. But you could not pick it. To pick the flower was to lose the name forever, not from memory, but from the world. That person would cease to exist, not in history, but in the living heart of anyone who had ever known them. The garden did not explain this. The silver thorns hummed it into the air, and visitors simply knew. Most people came to look. They found their flower. Marta, Lay, old Thomas, the boy with the lopsided smile, and knelt beside it for a long while. They touched the petals gently. They wept. Then they stood, wiped their knees, and walked home lighter by one small stone of grief. But some could not resist. The garden had a second rule, whispered only to those who lingered too long at dusk. If you pick a flower for a name you never called anyone, a name that belongs to no one, you can keep it, and that name becomes a person, a friend, a love, a child. They will walk out of the mist with you, and they will stay as long as you live. No one knew where the unnamed flowers grew. You had to find them by accident. One autumn, though the garden had no autumn, a young man named Solen came to the gate. He was 22, and he had never missed anyone the way the garden required. His parents were alive and kind. His friends still wrote letters. His first love had ended quietly, like a candle snuffed by a closing door, and he had said her name so rarely since that he wondered if it counted. But Solen was lonely. Not the dramatic kind, the small, hollow kind, like a room swept clean of furniture. He came to the garden because he had heard the second rule from a drunkard in a tavern, and the drunkard had whispered it, with tears in his eyes, and a ring on his finger that had no name engraved inside. "Don't," the drunkard said. "Don't you do it." Solen nodded and went anyway. The garden was larger than any forest he had known. Flowers rose in every color he could name, and 5 he could not. He passed Esme, broken Gabriel, the midwife, Giond who sang off-key. Each name glowed faintly, like embers after rain. He did not stop. He was not looking for someone he had lost. He was looking for no one. For 3 hours he walked. The mist thickened, then thinned, then turned gold with a light that came from nowhere. And there in a small clearing, where the grass grew in spirals, he saw a single flower that had not yet opened. Its bud was the color of milk in moonlight, and when he knelt beside it, he heard a sound like breathing. He touched the bud. It unfurled petal by petal. On the innermost petal, written in letters of soft silver, was a name, Saul. His own name. But not quite. Saul was shorter, simpler, the name of someone who had never been. Solen's hand shook. The drunkard's voice echoed in his ears. But loneliness is a patient animal, and it had curled itself around his ribs for years. He plucked the flower at the stem. The garden exhaled. The mist pulled back like a curtain. And standing at the edge of the clearing, barefoot and blinking in the strange light, was a person about his age, with Solen's own cheekbones, but softer eyes, and a smile that looked like it had been waiting to happen. "Hello," said Sol. Solen laughed. It was an ugly surprise sound. "You're real." Sol tilted his head. I think so. Did you just make me? I think so. Sol looked at his own hands, then at the flower now wilting in Solen's grip. Well, he said. That was nice of you. What do we do now? They walked out of the garden together. The silver thorns did not scratch them. The gate, which had no gate, let them pass. For 7 years Sol lived in Solen's house. He learned to cook eggs. He developed a fear of spiders and a love of rain on tin roofs. He worked at the bakery down the street, and the baker's wife said Sol was the kindest young man she ever hired. He and Solen stayed up late playing cards, and Sol always let Solen win. They never argued. They never grew tired of each other's company. Sol was everything Solen had never known he was missing: a brother, a mirror, a hand on his shoulder when the world pressed too close. But the garden's gift had a hidden seam. On the 7th year, Sol began to fade. Not his body, his edges. He would pause mid-sentence, forgetting what he meant to say. His shadow grew thinner. One morning, Solen woke to find Sol sitting on the porch, watching the sunrise, and his left hand was translucent. You knew, Solen whispered. Sol smiled, that same waiting smile. I always knew. Flowers don't last forever, Solen. Even the ones you pick. How long? Sol looked at his fading hand. Tonight, probably. Don't be sad. You weren't lonely for 7 years. That's a long time. Solen grabbed his wrist. The skin felt like petals. There has to be a way. We can go back. The garden. The garden gave you what you asked for, a person to stay as long as you live. Sol's voice was gentle. You're going to live a long time, Solen. But a flower's life isn't the same as yours. I'm not your whole life. I'm just. Don't say just. I'm just the name of who you needed when you were 22. Sol pressed his translucent hand against Solen's cheek. That's not nothing. That evening, Sol sat in the old armchair by the window. Solen read to him from a book of folktales, the one about the girl who planted a garden of lost things. Halfway through a sentence, Solen looked up. The chair was empty. A single petal lay on the cushion, silver white, with no name written on it at all. Solen buried the petal in his backyard. He did not whisper a name over it. He did not ask for anything. The next spring, a flower grew there. It was small and pale, and on its petals, faint as an echo, were 2 names, Sol and Solen, twined together like braided stems. People who pass by say the flower smells like cardamom and rain. And sometimes, if you listen very close, you can hear 2 voices laughing over a game of cards. The garden of lost names still grows in a valley without seasons. Most come to find the ones they lost. A rare few come looking for no one, hoping to pick a flower that will love them for a while. And the silver thorns hum the same warning, over and over. Names are anchors, names are chains, but a name you give to no one, that's a door you open yourself. Whether you walk through it is your own kind of magic.